I'm John Britton.
And I'm Angela Jameson, and together we've created the School of Humankind.
We'd like to welcome you to Humanity, where Angela, I, and sometimes other guests get ourselves a cup of tea and talk about the things that matter, how to be human in a really complicated world. Well, welcome to Humanity, where we put the world to rights, talk about the really big questions, and do it all over a cup of tea. Usually it's Angela and I talking, but today is a super exciting day because we're joined by one of the School of Humankind faculty, the magnificent Anne Alvares. How are you, Anne?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Tell everybody, where are you calling from? Where are you?
I am calling from Richmond, British Columbia, Canada.
Yeah.
So we got two.
I'm just a cheerleader.
Yeah, those little squeaks you hear in the background there, Angela going, yay, yay.
That's audio confetti. Audio confetti.
So today we have two Canadians and a Welsh Irishman or Irish Welshman, call it what you want. And we need to start with the really important things. Anne, what are you drinking?
I am drinking homemade coffee from my mother mug.
Oh,
What are you talking about? What's homemade coffee? Tell me that.
Oh, it's just brewed coffee.
Oh,
I made it myself, though. I didn't go to Starbucks.
I see. I was like, did you go pick the beans? Like, do you grow everything in BC? Jeez.
I'm not that domestic.
I would just point out that this podcast is not called Humana Coffee. That's all I'm saying. It's actually called.
Exactly.
So I think I'm entirely in favour of people who see a system and choose to smash it. So thank you for smashing our cosy cup of tea system. Angela, what are you drinking this morning?
I think I might have drank this before, but it's just a lemon ginger tea.
Nice.
Organic.
Oh, better and better. Is this the one that your friend makes?
Yes.
You have drunk it before. And I hope it's as nice this time as it was last time.
Yes, I hope so too.
I am on the Indian holy basil, or tulsi, which is a sacred herb in Hinduism. Good for the digestion and for stress relief, as well as having significant sacred properties. I used to drink it loads when I was in India, and now I only get it occasionally, but it's a beautiful
That sounds pretty fabulous. Like, do you go to another space when you're drinking this? Like, are we going to get some holy insights?
Well, I wouldn't doubt it. I doubt you'll get a holy insight, but it's very stress relieving. So you might hear the sound of snoring. Depends how long you speak for.
Okay. We'll mute your microphone if that happens.
Please do. So we are teed and coffeed up and ready to go. And what are we talking about? Anne, you came in with an idea for a conversation for us to have. So, well, two things.
Yeah.
First, do you want to tell us briefly about yourself? Because regular listeners will know a bit about Angela and I. Tell us briefly about yourself, and then tell us what you think we should have a chat about today.
Okay, well, I am a parent coach, an educator, and author. I just wrote a book this year. And the mother of two. Well, one is a teenager. I have a teenager at home right now. And the other one is old and he's living on his own, finally.
Let us classify what old means.
26. He's 26. So he's living on his own. He bought his own condo. I'm super proud of him.
Yes.
So, and he's close by. So he comes for dinner once in a while.
Yes, they still have the strings through their stomach. I'm pretty certain of that.
They do. Yeah. I thought we'd talk about relationships because that's such a huge part of our humanness, our humanity.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add that you've been an esteemed faculty member of the School of Humankind since the inception, and you've given so many wonderful, informative parenting talks that people can find on our YouTube channel and also search on your page as well. So that's all accessed through the schoolofhumankind.com. So I just wanted to add that because we really appreciate all of the wisdom you've shared, and there's so many great parenting tips. So today, it being relationships and relating to humankind, I think is so super appropriate. So where should we start, Anne?
Well, I want to start with why do we have problems in our relationships?
Because people don't do what I say. No, just kidding.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. If only, we've already just discovered the major problem. There's three people here who all believe that everyone should do exactly as only they say. We might have a problem.
It's true. It's true.
What if you had to give a one-sentence answer to your own question, Anne? Why do we have problems with relationships? What would that be? It could be more than one sentence, of course.
I think it's because we focus on the other person and not ourselves. I think life is an inside out job.
Yes.
So we start inside, right? When we start on the inside, yeah, like when we're like feeling good about ourselves, our lives, we know who we are, then we don't get offended by people as much.
Yeah,
it doesn't
totally agree.
affect us as much, you know?
Yeah.
But when we are not honing into our inner selves, who we are, our happiness, feeling good about our lives, then everything offends us, you know?
Agreed. And I think, well, when I was putting together my framework of relaxed productivity, I actually initially called it inside out engineering because that's where we have to do the work is inside. And like you said, when you do that work and you feel whole, then you let everyone be who they are as well. That's
Yeah.
kind of the trademark of people who are okay with themselves is and you can feel it from people. I was saying it the other day to some friends is the best gift you can give others is the freedom to be themselves with no judgment, no just curiosity and encouragement, because we're all on this different road of personal development. We can all feel, good one day and bad the other day, and it's just accepting that as each of us. But yeah, I think when we focus on the other person, as you so aptly put it, then we're expecting them to act a certain way. And when they don't do that, and we're not whole with ourselves, we can easily, that relationship gets affected.
Mm-hmm.
One of the
one of the things that,
so go ahead, Anne.
I was going to say like Angela just brought up in my mind the revelation that I had. But I learned all of this late in life, but this revelation that I had that maybe 5 years ago that we're not on the planet to change anybody. We're only on the planet to change ourselves, to work on ourselves. And when we focus on ourselves, that's when we have fulfillment in our lives.
So I fundamentally agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I also want to query it.
Just say it, John.
Well, no, it's not challenge, but because I agree, but I want to query it because there is for me a danger, and it's a danger I think that is very prevalent in particularly Western societies, that the idea that we focus on ourselves and that we're only here to sort of develop ourselves and so on doesn't have to, but can translate into a sense of either indifference to others or, among some of the more rich and powerful in our societies, a sense that others are there to serve our development of ourselves. In other words, you're there to make me richer, or you're there to do what to do what I want you to do, or somehow you are there to serve my needs for myself, which is of course just narcissism and egotism. So I kind of accept and, profoundly agree that we have an obligation before we go out into the world to pay attention to and do the necessary work on ourselves. But as we go out into the world, I feel that our attention should shift not to the other person, because again, I agree with you, Anne, that that's often hugely problematic, but our attention should shift to what is happening between us and the other person, to
Mm.
the actual nature of the interchange between us and the other person, trying to sense how is that other person affecting us, and what do I see in this moment about how I am affecting this other person? And that's not only true for humans, it's to do when you're dealing with animals and the natural environment and all of the rest of it. What is the nature of the negotiation that is happening in the present moment between us and another? Now, we have to do the work on ourselves, but I don't think the work on the self is an end in itself. It's a
Mm.
preparation for the real work of relationship, which is that which happens between me and something else.
Yes. Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that what happens when we're working on ourselves is that we when we're full, we can give more to others. When we are empty or when we are depleted or when we're not feeling good about ourselves, this is what affects relationships, is that we don't feel full. And so then we don't have the capacity to give fully. But when we feel full in ourselves and content and happy, and we're focusing on our feeling good, then we have more capacity to give to others.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. I think one of the things that John you brought up that I love is when we're talking and when we're saying, you got to work on yourself and all that stuff, sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes because we're human, we screw up too. We're not these people sitting on top of a mountain chanting Om all day and loving humanity. There's, interchanges where you are going to get riled up. There's times when people are going to be kind of butt heads to you and or my what I like calling people, don't be a dick, but if you are a dick, the thing is that you are helping train others how to deal with dicks. So, in terms of the whole tapestry of humanity, it's really good to also view it as I like to, say it as a rug. We're all kind of in this together, that when I fail, someone's going to step up. And so when I speak often to women, we all try to nurture everybody and take care of everybody and put myself last. Well, it's like fail once in a while because your kids will finally step up and pick up their socks. Like don't you don't have to be everything to everyone. So I think, John, you bring up the really nice dance between people. And that's kind of the whole humanity view of the world is like, we are in this together. Your failings make me a better person. My failings make you, well, you have the potential to be a better person. You can also fight me. That's okay too. This is just our experience here. And even though all we can do is choose our own response, sometimes we don't choose a good one, and that's okay.
And also, again, I would go all the way with you there. But and also, this is certainly my experience as I get older and older. I mean, I'm not that old, but I'm turning 62 next month, so I feel ancient enough. Um, I don't know what you being better means because I don't know what would be better for you or what would be what would be a better version of you in the world. In other words, I
Yeah.
no longer think I have with not only the right, but I don't even have the insight to assume I know how others should behave.
Mhm.
I certainly think I have the right and indeed the obligation to say there are behaviors that I will protest and behaviors that I will not be part of, and people whose behaviors mean that I will not engage with them in any way. But for me to sort of go, I'm going to try to make you a better person feels to me very, well, it's arrogant, but also foolish because I don't know what better is. I won't tell it now, but there's an old Buddhist story of, the man he and his wife have a healthy son, and everyone says, "Oh, you're so lucky," and he goes, "Maybe, maybe not." And then the son grows to be a great horse rider. "Oh, you're so lucky, maybe, maybe not." And then the son falls from a horse and breaks his leg. "Oh, you're so unlucky, maybe, maybe not." And then the army comes through and takes all the men, but not his son because he's got a gammy leg, and "Oh,
Dead
you're so
leg.
lucky, maybe, maybe not." And so it goes on and on. And it's this basic thing about saying we never actually know what is or is not for the best in the long term. So I come back to going, what I like your word, Angela, dance. I come back to what is the dance of communication between me and another in this moment, and how can I most skillfully and with the greatest authenticity play my role in the dance, even though I don't really know what the dance is for.
The dance is humanity. And and I think we can never really help someone be better, except, we try with our kids.
Mm.
But at a
Yeah.
certain point, it's all everyone's personal choice of how they develop or not. There's some old people who haven't grown their minds since they were teenagers. And
Many
there
of
are
them, many of them
teenagers,
leading countries around the world, I have to
yeah,
say.
Yes,
and many
yes.
of teenagers who are so enlightened
Yeah.
that you don't know where that wisdom comes from. So,
Yeah.
and I think, John, you mentioned there's people that their behavior is so abhorrent that you wouldn't have anything to do with them. But there's also the inability to change that. So
Yeah.
you kind of have to have the peace within yourself to let it be.
Mm.
Because, one of the big universal concepts is, this is an inclusion universe in terms of whatever you put your attention on, you're going to see more of. So when you push against someone's bad behavior, you can feel it riles you up. But if you just let it go, like it's kind of like ignoring the bully, they will see that they are not getting you. And then it's kind of what am I doing this for anyway? And that creates potentially the change, but also protects your own peace.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested,
I
Anne.
agree.
Yeah, I'm interested in this, Anne, because it's something that Angela was just bringing up there, that particularly for you, because I'm not a parent, Angela and Anne, you both are parents. Uh,
Yes.
But also, Anne, you have a particular specialism of, over many years of working with
Yeah.
parents in
Yes.
education and so on. What, how do you see that managing of relationship evolving from, the moment of birth where you have to manage every aspect of the relationship, obviously, through to, is it a boy now? You're 26-year-old. You got a boy who's
Yeah.
26.
He's 16.
So it's changed. And what is there a sort of can you describe what that process of change is for the parent in relationship to the child over time?
For me, it's been about letting go as they get older.
And
I
how
was
do
a
you do
very,
that, Anne?
it's hard. I
I
know it's really hard. I grew up with very controlling parents, and I started my motherhood journey being a little bit too controlling. And then, but it's a relationship. Here's the thing that I want parents to know is you are having a relationship with your child. And so a relationship requires communication. And that requires us listening to our kids, not directing, not, trying to get them to do everything that we want them to do. So I listened to my son when he was probably around 7 or 8. We had a little battle. And he expressed to me that when I tell him what to do, it it makes him not want to do it. But when I ask him, then he wants to do it.
Oh, what a
And that was a
huge, oh,
light bulb moment.
self-awareness. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he's like beyond wise. So that was the light bulb moment for me. And that's is what I teach parents is let's ask, let's not tell, because nobody wants to be told what to do, but everybody wants to be invited. And
Hmm.
asking is an invitation. So
Right.
that was like that is part of being in a relationship is what do you think? Do you think you could help me with this? How can we make it better when you're involving the person in problem solving, right? This is healthy. This is a healthy relationship. And so over time I've learned because it wasn't modeled to me by
Mhm.
my parents. They were not relational at all. But over time I've learned and I'm really much better with that. Teaching parents this. This is a relationship, and you've got to treat people the way you want to be treated, especially our children. We have to treat them the way they want. We want them to treat us. And so we're the role models, right? Um, yeah, it's a relationship.
But if your lad tells you, or says to you, I don't like it when you tell me, I like it when you ask. Yeah, absolutely. You've got to be present enough to hear, not to go, how dare you tell me what to do or whatever, and all of that stuff. What was your experience, or Angela, that may also be true for you, or question for you. I'm interested because I work with young children sometimes in primary schools, but I've never been a parent. But if the child is not communicating with that degree of insight and articulacy that you're describing, but you know that something is beginning to go amiss in the relationship, whatever, what are the processes you then go through to enable yourself to know whether to impose greater restrictions or to let go or to, provide context for the child or just to go, it'll pass in the next week. What's your sort of touchstone that you go back to?
Well, for me, I focus on the relationship. I want good relationship with my kids because what I've realized is when you have a good relationship with anybody, that's when you can have the most impact in their lives. You think about the mentors that you've had in your life. They're the ones that cared about you. They're the ones that took the time to ask you about how you are. Those are the people that you want to listen to, not the people that are making you feel bad about yourself or criticizing you or trying to control you. You don't want to listen to those people, right? You want to listen to the people that really care deeply about you. And so my go-to is always how do I show care for my child but still guide him in his life? And so I do plant seeds. I call them planting seeds with my kids. I do plant seeds. I ask them questions. Oh, do you think you're using your time wisely? Oh, do you think that's a good decision?
Do you ever get an answer to that?
I do.
I sometimes feel like I'm planting seeds with a hammer. Do you think scrolling on Instagram is using your time wisely?
Do you think leaving all the washing up from when you had two, three, four, five friends round last night and leaving it all piled in the sink is a reasonable way to behave if you wish to get through to the end of the day unscathed?
John, you are not a parent and yet you know my house.
Yeah. How do you know?
Yeah.
Because I've never grown up, that's why.
I see. Oh, this is your partner telling you this.
This is confession time. Move on. Everybody
Yeah.
move on. We're not here to talk
Yes,
about
yes,
me.
yes. Right. Well, when I was listening to you talk about, that moment, and I'm kind of going through that moment with my youngest. He's he was a boisterous, really engaging child. And then as a teenager, he's a little quieter. He's, doesn't necessarily talk as much as he used to. His friends are, definitely more important than me. But
Yes.
and that's okay because that's what it's supposed to be. That's where he's getting his influence. So it's kind of a dance of keeping an overall view of what's going on, keeping the communication open, trying not to push too much, although I have my moments. But there was still a time he went out late one night, and when he came home, I was in bed, and he sort of just came in and he lay down and he just was there. And then we had the most beautiful talk, after it, just finding out what his day was like. And it was nice. It wasn't forced. It was one of those natural things that happens. So keeping that communication open and not pushing when you maybe do want to drive that seed in with a hammer, it's like step back. What I like to do is notice when my own personal emotions are getting too high about it, is like, yeah, this is my moment to calm down. They do have a lot, I've done a lot of work with them until now. I should trust that they make good decisions. So,
Yes.
and when they don't, that's when I go and pick them up or whatever. That's part of
Yes.
learning because no matter how many times I tell them, they'll still do something and I have to support.
Yeah.
It's
So
very
true.
interesting that another one of our faculty who we'll talk to on one of these podcasts, I'm sure, Sorrel, uh, she deals with coaching and mentoring people who are either partners of or who themselves went to boarding school. And I also went to boarding school. Um, and it's really interesting listening to the two of you who are, running functional families. um, that I had my parents were, they were quite remarkable in many ways, but they were neither of them easy, and both, in their way, extremely damaged by their own upbringings.
Mhm.
And I was sent away to boarding school, which was a horrendous experience. A lot of bullying, and my dad was a teacher and would go home at the end of the day, and then I would, you know, pay for all the things she'd done during the day, and so on. It was a horrible experience. But when I listen to you, I realize how much of the difficulty that I have encountered on this particular journey through life has been because there was not the gentle planting of seeds. I love your phrase, Anne, the gentle planting of seeds, or the holding space and listening, or the nurturing of relationship. There were rules and there were
Yeah.
punishments and there was a tooth and nail fight between children for some kind of status and survival. I mean, I was bullied very badly, but the bullies were just as damaged as I were. They were,
Mm.
a poor, children who'd been thrown out of their homes, which is essentially what a boarding school is. You're thrown out of your home, and they were desperate, and they dealt with their desperation by beating the hell out of me. So that absence of planting seeds, nurturing, caring, listening. I can see, but it's really clear to me listening to the two of you how much that was not part of my upbringing and how much its absence has, even now, 40 years after I left school, more than 40 years after I left school, how I feel its absence half a century after I left school. I just did a primary
Mm.
school project with 11-year-olds, and we started from the fact that I was half a century older than them. And so we imagined half a century into the future and what will the world be like and so on. But I was also looking at them. It's very monocultural around here, but this was an extremely multicultural school. A lot of refugee children, children from Africa, the Middle East, all sorts of places. And they were, potentially a really difficult class. And they weren't. They were glorious. They were magnificent. And they were magnificent because they had learnt the structures of listening and being listened to. There was a problem one day, So I did before and after lunch each one day a week. And there's been a problem at lunchtime, and we didn't start the class. The teacher, who's only a young woman, spent 5 minutes bringing people up to a desk and saying, okay, what happened? What happened? And everybody who had a say in it was heard. And then a decision was made about what would happen. And then it was forgotten. And I think, oh my God, that is so intelligent. And the things you're both saying in terms of, holding space for the evolving child seems to me hugely important and transferable to every other relationship. The holding of space for the evolving person, how do we hold space and go? And a word that keeps coming up for me in my own thinking is opinions. I increasingly feel I don't want really to have opinions about myself or anyone else, because opinions get in the way of actually connecting. If I'm thinking what you should be doing, I'm not paying attention to what you're doing. If I'm thinking about what I should be doing, I'm not paying attention to what I am actually experiencing in this moment. So, just that holding of space feels to me so vitally important.
Yeah,
It's
and
really
John,
sacred.
we talk a lot about presence,
Mm,
and presence is such a big deal when you're talking about relationships, is really being there in the moment to see and feel that person and allow them to be themselves right in front of you and not have your mind racing to the next thing of what you're going to say, or what might happen. It's being there right in the moment. I
mm,
think that's really
Yeah,
important too.
I
Um,
agree.
One thing on the parenting side, and it's a little bit of a tangent, but I always find it really helpful, and I wasn't given this myself, coming from Asian parents who were very much do as I say. And because I was a good girl, I did what they said and I didn't necessarily have an opinion. And I've grown up kind of trying to encourage myself to have an opinion,
mm,
which is really difficult because I always say, okay, what does everyone else think first before I have an opinion? And that's really something I've try to develop in myself, and the feeling I didn't want to give my own children. I probably did because I didn't know any better, like you said, Anne. You don't have that modeled. But what I've learned over the years is that it's really good to make your children make decisions,
Yes.
but within an envelope. And it can be something as simple as, hey, it's snack time. Would you like an apple or would you like an orange? And making them make the decision, because that you're training them to have an opinion. And I wasn't given that, but I like to encourage parents to do that. Do you want to do your homework now and then go out to play, or do you want to play for a few minutes and then do your homework? So there's still the desired outcome, but you're giving them some agency within that envelope in order to make a decision. Because when you're never allowed to make a decision, they are lost as adults. And I did feel an element of that growing up. Is I got married really young, and then suddenly it was, I'm going to do what my husband wants to do. And as a result, I learned to play golf. So that's, there's not bad things. It's not always bad, but it's one of those, I didn't have an opinion. I just went along. So I just wanted to insert that in terms of a really cool parenting trick that you just have to tweak in your daily
I,
interactions with your kids.
I love that. I love that. I'm similar, very, very controlling, and I didn't have an opinion in my family. It really affected me in my adult life, being a people pleaser
Yeah.
and not listening to my voice and not giving my opinion. But I raised my children differently, my boys. I'm always asking what they think. And what I noticed is that they have grown so much in confidence. The confidence I never had at their age. They have. They have the confidence that I have now at their
Mhm.
age.
Yeah.
And it's
That's a gift.
because I've always been trying to listen and hear what they have to say and give them lots of opportunity to express what they want by asking. Like you said, Angela, asking is so important. What do you think? Would you like this or this? And that, just that alone starts to help our kids to develop their identity and to understand they have a voice, right?
Mhm.
Because we want
Mhm.
them, we're raising adults, and we want them, when they go out into the world, to understand their voice matters
Yeah.
and what they think matters, and that they can freely express it safely without judgment, and that starts with us, not judging them and letting them freely express it.
Well, I think there is going to be judgment, but to help them understand it doesn't, that's none of my business. If
Mm,
someone judges me for my opinion, that's on them. It's
yeah,
not
Mm.
on me.
I
So,
agree. But at
yeah.
home, it should be no judgment. That's what I'm saying.
Well, yeah. I don't know if I can do that yet. It's like, well,
I have no
I'm just
opinion
pushing.
about I
that
have
was
no
smart.
opinion about those dishes in the sink. I think I'm sitting there,
You know,
I'm
I,
entirely at peace.
you know, um, I grew up in a very controlled environment, right? And my mom would be like, you need to be home by this time or whatever. And my son's on summer vacation now, my youngest. And he told me about this party that he wanted to go to. So I said, okay, no problem. So he goes to the party and it's like getting late. It's like 10:30, 11. He's scootering, right? It's not
Ooh,
that far, but still I guess
yeah.
I still have parent fear because of my parents, like overprotection. So I was just messaging him like, are you coming home now? Are you coming home now? Right? So, so he came home like just after 11 and he's like, oh, I had the best time. And then he thanked me. He's like, Mom, thanks for letting me stay out late. I had so much fun. And then he
Oh,
proceeded
wow.
to tell me what happened. You see what happened? Like, if I was that controlling parent that I grew up with, I would not share anything with my parents because I would have already gotten a scolding, a yelling at, you know, I would have already gotten in trouble. But here, because I worked on myself and just like uh, gave him leeway. Okay, as long as he's communicating with me and he's on his way and he came home, then that opened the door to him sharing his experiences, which was so wonderful.
Yeah, it's very interesting that my father, who was a lot older than me, he was over 50 when I was born. So he was literally brought up by someone his father was a Victorian era father. So my dad was born in 1911 or something like that. But he was not somebody who communicated. He was a very gentle man in some ways, but absolutely, you did not speak back. You did what you were told, or you would, well, quite possibly get a slap round the head, but certainly be shouted at. So that taught me a lifetime of secrecy, of going,
Mm,
I'll just keep quiet about things. And I think there's something quite good about keeping quiet about things. I don't complain much and so on. And I quite like that. But like all of these things, like working on the self or paying attention to others, like, control and freedom, like having an opinion or not being allowed to have an opinion, there is a middle way, isn't there? And
mhm,
it sort of seems to me that I'm always interested in this notion of the middle way. It, when I think about relationship, I come back to what I said a wee while ago, that in the end, the relationship isn't about me and it's not about you. It's about what happens in the middle. It's about what happens between us in that gap between myself and you. Something happens, and that's what I have to be paying attention to. You were talking about presence, Angela. You know, that gap, that middle space is what I need to pay attention to if I'm to be engaged in healthy relationships. I'm aware that
Maybe
my cup
that's
of
where
tea is nearly
humanity
empty.
lies.
Maybe, yeah, maybe
Yeah,
this is
sorry.
No, go for it.
Is that middle space.
Increasingly, I think so, you see. Increasingly,
Yeah.
I think that there are no absolutes, including that no absolutes is not an absolute, because there probably are some absolutes. But there are no absolutes, really. There is only the negotiation between one thing and another. And our humanity is our relationship with other humans, with the natural world, with our history, with our culture, with our families, with, the birds outside and so on. It's a continual process of relationship.
Yes, it's true.
But as I was saying, I think my cup of tea is just about empty. My Tulsi tea is at its dregs. Anne, have you got any is there a final thought you want to throw in? Because you provoked this discussion and it's wonderful to share the time with you. But you started off from a question, why do we have such problems with relationships? And you've given all sorts of answers. Do you have a succinct one sentence, which can be more than one sentence, response to, people who go, I am having problems with relationships? What is the most, or a relationship, whatever, what is the single starting point you would say to them in terms of, here is the very first thing I would advise you to do if you want to begin to solve a problem that you are having with a relationship? What's their starting point?
These keywords: help me understand. Help me understand. Help me understand your point of view. Help me understand what you're going through. Help me understand what you want to say. Help me understand. I think that's really key to a good, healthy relationship, because now you're getting out of yourself and you're getting into, when you understand another person, then that is when connection is built, right? That is when empathy is built, and that
I love that.
strengthens the relationship. So help me understand.
Yeah, and it shows such respect for the other person that how can you not answer that? Like there's not those aren't fighting words, those are like, let's bring me into your world. I want to step in, but I don't know where to step. That's beautiful.
Mm.
And where can you mentioned you're an author. Where
Yes.
can people find your book? What is your book, and how can people find you?
Okay, so my book is Heal Your Childhood, Reclaiming Your Worth, Voice, and Future. We talked about, we didn't have a voice, and so now we're reclaiming it. And it's on Amazon. So you can just pick it up on Amazon. It's an ebook and hard copy and soft cover. So whatever you want, whatever you fancy. And really it is about the healing journey, the inner healing that can happen so that your life is full.
Mhm. And you have a podcast and
Yes.
a website.
Yes. So my podcast is Masterful Parenting. It's on Apple, it's on everything, Spotify. And I have a YouTube channel also called Masterful Parenting.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing your insights today, Anne.
Yeah, good on
Thank
I
you.
know
you.
it's always life is better when we bring the faculty and have a nice chat.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Well, thank you to all of you who are listening. And check out the other episodes we have online. And come and have a cup of tea with us again sometime soon. And take care out there. It can be a rough old world. Thank you very much for listening. If you'd like to know more about School of Humankind, please visit our website at www.schoolofhumankind.com, or you can drop us an email on hello@schoolofhumankind.com. Take care out there.